22nd of February, 2021. Calling the meeting to order. I'll do a roll call. Paul Hanley.
Here.
Seth Burke.
Seth Burdick here.
Ray Perone.
Ray Perone here.
Charlie Eager.
Charlie Eager here.
Fran Parks present. Okay, first thing we'll do is a pledge of allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm going to start this this evening with the mid-year FY21 budget reports of the Water Department and the Fire Department. So, Chris, would you like to?
Sure, I can go first. I had sent around a couple things. I don't know if we can share and put either one on. One's just the revenue projections, and the other is what we have the balance of and spent out of appropriations. Did you try that, Lisa, to see if you could share any of that, or should I just go with what I sent around with the email?
Can't hear you, Lisa.
I thought I had it. I'm trying now. Apparently I have multiple screens that aren't coordinating. Paul, do you have that ability?
To share? I think I do.
I put them all in Prudential this meeting.
Yeah, I reviewed it earlier. Let me pull it up.
I'm sorry, Paul Rude was the person I was asking if you can, my screen isn't sharing somehow.
Coming up.
Okay.
Hold on a second, I gotta twist it. It says host disabled, share participants sharing screen. All right.
I'll try multiple sharers now. How about
I
that?
can do it now. I got it.
Okay. Ta-da.
Okay, that's good. That's good there. This is our revenue projections for this year. I believe, and Ray could actually help me out here. If not, I think you guys had thought it was around 700 to 800,000. We had projected around $1 million, and we're actually going to do 1.4 at least. It looks like in our projections right now. We're about 370,000 over projections without bringing in any penalty bills right now. So that's kind of what it looks like for projections, at least. If you want to bring up the other screen, Paul.
Chris, I think we're more like 900, but you're close enough.
Okay. All right, this here, it's a little tough to see and everything, but this is what we spent and what we appropriated here in the balance sheets that we have. You can see that the salaries there, we really can't do too much about those, but it does look like there's a possibility we might have a little bit of leftover there between overtime, and we just had an employee turn in his resignation. So we might pick up a little bit of money left over at the end of the year there. It depends how quick we hire somebody after that. Through maintenance there, we're right about a little over halfway through a little more than halfway through the year. There's quite a bit of money there, but I have a lot of projects to be done for some repiping down at one of my pumping stations. I do believe that will be gone, to let you know. And we're right on target, basically. If you go down to operations there, same there. We're actually roughly halfway through the, little over halfway through the year, a little under. So we're right on projections there. The only thing, we might have a little left over at the end there, but I can't, if we don't have any kind of projects come up for engineering and legal services, there might be a little left over there at the end. Both special appropriations that are on there are planned to be turned back in this year and closed out. I do plan on the truck. I've had trouble getting a magnetic sign for it and a new locator for it. I don't expect them to be much more than, I would say, under $1,000. So you're going to probably get back at least $6,000 from that to turn back into the USDA reserve. Oh, no, excuse me. The
Enterprise account.
thank you, enterprise account. Thank you so much. And with the security system, we're basically done with that right now.
Enterprise account, but-
And that's going to be turned into some money be turned back in. I do have though right now, as you guys are familiar with the cybersecurity that happened around the Super Bowl down at Station 3 with the treatment plant. We're going to do some extra security here that wasn't put on at the time, which is probably going to cost, I'd say, maybe $4,000 more dollars I might take out of that just to add the security of having our own VPN and everything for the department itself. So you still could expect quite a good size back from both of those. And they will be getting turned back in at the end of this fiscal year.
So
Okay. Any questions?
actually stabilization fund, not enterprise, but
Correct.
any questions for Chris?
Oh, yeah, Chris, the electricity is running a bit heavy. I presume that
Yes,
due to the water pumpage increase this past
Correct.
summer?
correct. Over the summer that we had quite a bit of usage, that we had tremendous amounts of water that we were pumping. Right now, I see the next 3 to 4 months of being not as much, but not as low as last year, because we still seem to be pumping about 100,000 more than a month than we did last year.
Really?
Well, there's a lot of people here now that have
Ah, yes,
staying around,
yeah.
not going away. They're having houses that aren't turning off and stuff like that. People are staying year round that used to only come in the summertime. It's a nice place to live.
Yep,
Well, Rick, if I may jump in here, Scott Horsley, Water Commissioner, with the chair's permission.
Yes,
So we've been discussing this at the Water Commissioners meeting, and you're absolutely right. The consumption is continuing to go up, even though our population is not. And as Chris correctly points out, clearly part of this is the COVID stay at home. But I'm also hearing from multiple sources in the irrigation industry that there's a lot of new irrigation systems going in. As I think you all know, we are studying this issue. During the summer months, we feel that approximately half or more of our pumping is going on lawns and not into people's homes. And it is clearly causing some serious issues with regard to the Little River wetlands, and also taxing Chris's ability to actually serve the safe drinking water that we enjoy and people in Houston and other places in Texas are not. So we're fortunate so far, but we do believe that there's an irrigation impact here in addition to the COVID bump. And we are doing our due diligence here to provide a long-term sustainable water supply for the residents of Cotuit. And as I think you all know, are working towards a more sustainable irrigation policy. So I think that's the other factor here.
thank you.
You're welcome, Fran.
Seth or Paul, do you have any questions?
I have one question relative to the irrigation and the overage and the projections and the, I guess, overall pumping. I've spoken to a number of people lately who have said that they've put in their own irrigation wells specifically for the purpose of irrigating the lawns. How do you think that is going to affect, the revenue from billing, relative to this overage, and then also like, the general water level in the village by and large? More specific.
Seth, thank you for that question. It's a great question. We've been discussing that as well. As you all know, our water rates went up last year, so our revenues per gallon or per cubic foot are going up have gone up significantly. And we feel that that's going to offset any reduction in demand from people moving on to private wells. And that's exactly what we want them to do. There's multiple benefits. One is it makes our system more resilient and more sustainable. We can pump within a much more practical range of pumping without causing the impacts on the stream and the wetlands. It also provides an added benefit. When people put their own private wells in, it recaptures nitrogen on their properties. And I'm sure most of you have heard about the issues with Cotuit Bay, which is projected along with the rest of the town over $1.5 billion to clean up these nitrogen impacts. So the transfer from irrigating using the drinking water supply onto private wells will actually help that on an incremental on a basis. So it's actually a win-win. We don't really lose any revenues because of the rates going up. And secondly, we actually provide some protection and offset some probably much more significant costs of cleaning up the bay. So so thanks for the question, Seth, and you're right on. This is a win-win-win.
Thank you. That
You're
does it.
welcome.
Paul, do you have a question?
Just two questions actually, and sorry for if this has been discussed before, but as the new guy, this is a great budget to see an overage. You don't see a lot of those. I wish my home budget looked like that. But you've probably discussed it before. You know, what happens to that money? How is that decided upon? And is that figure it says projected revenue, is that where it stands now, or is that projected to be where it stands at the end of June?
Oh, Chris, go ahead. And
There was an actual figure on that. If you go back to the other, Paul, I don't know if you can bring up that other slider down. I believe that the variance that's on there's you can see that there's an actual that we have right now. The 1.434 is an actual that came in. So it's well over what we projected. As you can see, the 366,000 more. It all ends up going to the general fund also. As you were saying, Ray might be able to handle that a little more. Most of the money that's left over and any of this all goes right into the general fund.
that's correct, Chris. It goes into the general fund, and it would become part of our calculation of free cash at the end of the fiscal year, which gets certified by the state and then becomes available for allocation at our next annual district meeting in 2022.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Chris, I have a couple of questions. I noticed that the actuals for the antenna revenue is 8,000 more than you projected. Is that somebody didn't leave or did somebody come on?
No, that's just, I believe, interest that wasn't that we didn't realize on there.
Oh, okay. And then back on your the budget summary.
Yep.
What's in a consumption assessment?
We have to pay for the water. The amount of water we take out, we get assessed so much per gallon or so much for 100,000 gallons. And we have to pay the state actually for withdrawing the water out of the ground.
Oh, okay.
And we know what that is. We actually don't get charged for this year's water till next year.
Oh, okay. So this is last year?
Correct.
Okay. And is there any ability to, I know you check the tanks to see, you know, the lowering of the water when we're pumping, doing all this pumping, but is there any way to check the level of the aquifer?
Yeah, we have well depth on each one of our stations, drawdowns and static levels. We have it right at the station every month. We look at it to make sure that we are having the levels that we need. Last year, our levels did go down to almost 2 feet lower than they should be. So they do go down in the summertime, and usually this is the time of year that they're coming back. That's why, where a lot of people didn't like to see the snow, we love it. It's actually loading us back up.
And Chris, if I could just add to that, I
Sure.
should let people know that we've brought on a consultant, Tom Cambereri, who's doing a groundwater model of the area, who's looking at these exact issues. How are our groundwater levels changing with regard to pumping and climatic events? And he's presented some preliminary information which does confirm our original ideas that a lot of the water that's going through these wells is being pulled from the Little River and drawing down the water levels in those areas. So Fran, I think you're right on, and we should be really careful about watching these dropping water levels, especially around our valuable wetlands. And we're on that. We've got a great consultant, Comm Cambereri, looking at it. And this is relative to the irrigation policy. So we're hoping that we'll get some results from this model over the next couple months and make sure that we can have a long-term, sustainable, high-quality drinking water supply. And I do want to put in a plug for Chris here. He mentioned briefly that he's taken notice from his assistant. And this is a challenging situation. And he and I have been talking quite a bit about how to get through this and weather the storm. And we're not asking for more money to do it, which is to Chris's credit here. And I think we'll do well with that. But it's I want to highlight Chris's efforts at dealing with that issue as many others. He's been a great superintendent.
Here. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So we'll move on to the FY21 budget report from the fire department.
Rick, do you want to do this? You want me to do it?
Yeah, I'll start. Well, you and I can tag team, but could you jump to the second page of this? Here we are. This represents the expenditures through the first 6 months of the year on salaries and wages. As you go down, our two good news items are sick coverage and full-time injury coverage are both running low at the 6-month mark, which is in marked contrast to last year's experience. And these are volatile line items, so it can turn on a dime if we have one or more serious injuries. We really managed, I think, to dodge the bullet in terms of COVID with our staff so far. So knock on wood, and since they've all got their vaccinations, we're optimistic. So with 42% expended at the halfway mark, we're feeling pretty good about the salary items. Before I go to the next page, are there any questions about this?
Seth, Paul,
I don't have anything specific, no.
I don't have anything either.
Chief, is there anything you wanted to add on salaries and wages?
Just for note, the only item that's over the 50% is the longevity pay, which is 54%. Longevity is a known item. It's predictable in advance. So we budget exactly the amount of money we need. Just so happened that anniversary dates, more than half of them occurred prior in the first half of the year. So we won't be over 100% by the end of the year in that item.
Thank you.
Any items you're worried about going over at the end of the year, or is it all on track now?
Well, in the wages and salaries area, we're happy with where we are. But as I mentioned, the volatility with line of duty injury particularly makes it such that you hold your breath till right up to the end of the year as to whether or not you're going to get hit with major expenses. But right now, we're in good shape on that area. So we're hopeful.
Thanks.
Chief has put up the second page. These are operations expenses. I will draw your attention to the easy one is the 911 dispatch, which is at 98%. This is again a fixed item. We've paid the bill, so we're good for the year, and we're not worried about that. The problem area is repair and maintenance with vehicles. This shows us at 91% as of the end of December, and we are significantly over 100% already. at this point, the primary problem being the ambulance. We have had some very expensive repairs. It's a diesel. These are exhaust system expenses. We've practically had to rebuild the entire exhaust system on it so far. There were also some repairs needed for the engine, but the primary culprit in this line item has been the ambulance. Fortunately, a lot of the other items are well below the 50% mark, and we may be able to get through by shifting surplus from those other line items to cover the cost, but it's touch and go, quite frankly. That just to throw out the implication of that for next month's presentation of the fiscal 22 budget. The ambulance itself is scheduled to be replaced in 2 years on our capital expenditure program. With all this money that we put into it, we're hopeful that will work out. But at the fire commissioner's next meeting, as we prepare the budget and we get a chance to see another month's worth of functioning post-repair with the ambulance, we do have to weigh the possibility of coming to next year's budget with a capital request for replacing the ambulance a year in advance. We certainly hope that doesn't happen, but just mention it in line with the ongoing problems around this one line item. Chief, do you have anything you'd like to add before we ask for questions?
No, I think you pretty well covered it. Like you said, the ambulance is a major problem. This particular model year ambulance, the International motor, is known to be a problem motor. Unfortunately, it wasn't known at the time we bought it, but it's known now to be one of the worst International motors that exists. So we've been paying the price for that. We're looking forward to the next vehicle being more than likely a gas Ford F550 chassis, which we could have repaired locally and wouldn't have the same diesel emissions problems. And it's a less expensive vehicle. So, but right now we're just trying to look to make good decisions to get us through and hopefully avoid a couple $100,000 expense earlier than necessary.
Chief, what year is that ambulance? And Richard, when you say if it doesn't work out, you mean if you can't get it to keep going for basically 2 more years, right?
Right. We're hopeful to try to nurse it through so that the ambulance replacement happens on schedule with our capitalization plan.
Yeah.
But
Without
these repairs caught us by surprise, and we're just hopeful that the worst is behind us and we'll get there.
Yeah.
I believe it's a 2015. We try to get 8 years out of them. That's kind of the standard in the industry for a frontline ambulance. So 2023 would be the 8th year for this vehicle. So like I said, hopefully we'll go the less expensive option next time, the less expensive gas, which also gives us the ability to repair locally. Right now, the nearest place we can get it repaired, the International's Wareham. So it either goes to Wareham or it goes up to Walpole. So it's a long distance for repair, and nothing's cheap. So.
Seth, do you have any questions?
Just one. How, if you could estimate, Rick or Paul, how far above a 91% are we so far on the repair bill for that? Are we 200%?
Currently,
Roughly. I mean, just if you have an idea, are we at 40,000, 50,000, you think now that we've put into the ambulance?
Oh, totally put into the ambulance.
Just this year, just during this budget period.
I think of that 26, probably almost 20 of it is ambulance expense.
Right.
I mean, I can bring it up for you. And
I'm just curious. Rick said it was significantly more than it would end up, because this is as of December. Did any of those occur, these repairs prior? So then January and February.
Right. We have had current repairs. Plus, when you look at the same working spreadsheet, through the end of January, it still doesn't show all the invoices that we know are coming in or haven't been paid yet.
Right, that's kind of what I was asking, if you had an idea. Is it, but we spent 35 or 40,000 on it? I'm just out of curiosity.
I can tell you right now, one second, I'll tell you. So these are all the maintenance expenses year to date. You can see there's one here for the ambulance for almost $12,000. Vehicle supplies, 262 repairs, $4,300 for the ambulance. 263, 265 maintenance is a $700 for the ambulance. There's the inverter. We just sent it out. That came back at $700. It's due to go out this week for a $2,000 part, which is probably another $1,000 in labor, so another $2,000. So we're looking at about $20,000 just this year alone for the ambulance repairs.
So yeah, it's coming up then. It's going to be a long shot probably that
Yeah, I mean,
worthwhile to continue to pour money into this ambulance when we could.
yeah, right now we're at 26,000. We're at $63 over budgeted money for the year. So we're just over today.
Right. All right. That
And
was
we
my
know
question.
that we have this additional repair already scheduled
Right, it's
with
coming
a
right up.
bill that will come in.
And I know we get some bills coming that we haven't received yet for the engine. Some of it's warranty, but we have a couple of engine repair bills coming in that could total $1,000 or $2,000. So we're going to be over.
Right.
But-
Well,
Yeah, for the total budget, we're not going to be over for the total budget. So, money can shift between operations expenses without actually
Right.
physically moving it between accounts or going to district meetings. So, we're only at 41% total for the budget, 38% for operations. So there's a significant amount of money in the other accounts that will easily make up for the
Right.
overage and repair.
just curious about how much that it had been up to this point. That sounds good to me.
That'd be a huge source of frustration for you, I'd imagine.
It's frustrating. It's also tough because we only have one ambulance. So
Yeah.
every time it goes out, we have to, beg and plead to get this thing back right away. It's important to have this available and ready for the community. So, and we don't have the ability to borrow one from someone else because none of the other ones fit in our station. So we try very hard to, if we have to take it out of service, to get it fixed very quickly. So, and like I said, unfortunately,
Gotta go to Wareham.
it's got to go to Wareham. So it takes a little bit of time, and we're a small account for the big company, so they don't always jump for us.
Right. Plus it means travel time for two guys and two vehicles every time we go over there with it. It's a nuisance. I would like to just throw out some kudos to Paul because handling this stuff between the problem we had with the engine and all this repeated problems with the ambulance. Paul has done a great job of scheduling, pushing them to get it back, getting mutual aid coverage. It's been a lot of load on his plate. He's done a great job with it.
And is it true that we borrow an ambulance in that situation, or it just becomes mutual aid when the ambulance is in the shop?
Most of the time it's mutual aid. One of the major repairs, the ambulance went down for a week, and we contacted the distributor that we buy ambulances from, and they happened to have one that was turned in, I think it was by Chatham Fire, for replacement. So it was a replacement they had. They were getting ready to sell, and they agreed to sell it to us for $1 for a week. So we bought it, retitled it in our name, and put it in service. And it took us about a day to get all that done. So we were able to put it in service for a week. But that came out of she's up there, Weymouth area. It was a ways away. We can't count on having something available, all the time. We just got lucky that one time.
Right. There's a lot of hidden costs that are associated with this ambulance as well, right? So
Yeah. We tried to sell it back to them for $1.25, but they didn't go for it.
Well, hats off, Paul, to you and your team for managing that. I know it's a big problem when you have a vehicle that's constantly breaking down.
Nice.
Well, the chief, if you went ahead with the purchase of the new one, would you want to keep this one as a backup or not?
Burn it.
Burn it, yeah.
Okay,
Probably shouldn't say that. No, this, at some point in time, we're looking to have, or would like to have, a backup option. A shared backup option with another district or department would be the preferred way to go. But it would have to be a backup option that's more reliable than our frontline current option. So we've been talking with Sandwich and the other departments about eventually having one of their spare ones, which is a more reliable one. Hopefully, when some of the newer ones, that the pickup truck ones, become spare, because they will actually fit in our station. Once we can get one that'll fit and we can share with another district, we'll present it as an option to the district.
Right now, however, even if such an arrangement were possible, we have limited space. We don't have an additional bay to keep a backup ambulance, undercover. It would have to be a cooperative arrangement with a department that has storage room for it.
So Paul, can I ask a question? Do you know how many days the ambulance was out of service this year so far?
I don't have a count. I know the one time it was out for the long period, it was about a week, and there were 2 or 3 other days. So somewhere between a week and 2 weeks, less than 14 days.
Okay. Great. So we all set on the fire department report?
I am.
Great.
I am too.
Okay, so we also have the new contract for the fire chief. We need to vote on that. And I'll just briefly pass along that the first year salary is $150,000 with a stipend for 1/2 the cost of the least expensive health plan, about $10,000. If the chief forgoes the district health plan. The FY21 average total compensation for the other town of Barnstable chiefs are $183,126, and the average total compensation without health insurance costs is $161,248. These averages are about the same for the Cape. I'm happy to sit down and review specifics of this contract with us. So does anyone have a question on the contract? Seth, Paul?
No, I read it. I think it seems pretty straightforward. I don't have any concerns about it particularly.
Same goes for me. I read it. Seemed pretty straightforward to me as well.
Great. So could I have a motion to accept the chief's new contract starting July of 2021?
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
All those in favor, Seth,
Seth Burdick, aye.
Paul,
Paul Hanley, aye.
Fran Parks, aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you all.
okay. Seth and Paul, if you didn't get, I think Lisa already sent the signature page for this to you so that we can sign it electronically. So if you haven't gotten it,
Yeah, I can. I'll print my name on there. It wasn't on there, but I can just print my name and then sign.
Yeah. Great. Now the treasurer's report.
thank you. It's going to be somewhat repetitious with the good reports that we heard from water and fire. And by the way, what I did, I extrapolated the January results on a full year basis, just using an arithmetic extrapolation and adjusting for some known things like the dispatch that we know is a one-time cost. And it would appear that if all things hold equal, we will finish the year under budget in just about every area. Looking at the report, starting off with revenue, the taxes are on budget, but there seems to be just a general slowing. When I look at the individual items, that's current year, and I guess, Lisa, you can't get this up? Okay. When I look at the individual items on the revenue, the current year is down from last year, even though it's on budget. Prior years are less than last year, but liens and penalties are up. And I'm thinking this might be a bit of a COVID impact, in that for the first 7 months of last year, there was no COVID, and for this year there was. So that could account for some of the slowing, but we're on budget, and I don't foresee any problems in that area. Fortunately, the water department more than makes up for any slowness in the other areas. The higher usage in some is going to result in a substantial portion. There it is. Thank you, Lisa. Can you go back to this revenue tab, the third tab? That gives the revenue detail. As you can see, the current year is on budget, but it's lower by a fairly substantial amount from what we had collected last year at this time on the current year. Same with the current year personal property, same with prior years. So just a general slowness. I don't think anything to worry about. Probably it'll turn around as the vaccine kicks in and people start picking up some of their prior year payments. The water area, as I said, the impact of the new rates and the higher summer usage is substantial. $380,000 over last year, and well ahead of the budget that we have projected for them. Meter fees are running on budget roughly and about the same as last year. Antenna is down as we switched from the tower rental to the land rental contract form. This is the first year where we have no antenna rental. We only have land rental. And the solar and other, a slight slowing and slower in the solar area, but not that noticeable, and we're close to budget. In the ambulance area, again, on budget or close to budget, but a decline in usage. And I think this is what I saw in my other district. There's just fewer runs this half of the year than the last half of the year, in last year's first half of the year. And I think that's probably a COVID. And Paul, you could chime in if you agree or disagree on that.
I agree. I think you're right. The ambulance run volumes were much lower at the beginning of COVID, probably up until the fall. I think they're starting to pick back up again now.
Okay. And then the other area is interest, which has been a $10,000 decline. So a substantial impact in that area. And we can go to the second tab there. Yeah, the expense one. Running down the totals here, the salaries in the finance department are over budget and will end up over budget by about $12,000. And that's really due to the grant work that the assistant treasurer did, some year-end work, and the refinancing work that I was involved with in the first half of the year. I ran it out. If we stick with budgeted hours and rates, we'll still end up at about $12,000 over in that area. All other areas, I'm sure, will finish under budget, even with the one-time cost of refinancing. That was offset by a substantially lower workers' comp as we move to a new policy this year. So we'll end up with Prudential expenses being under budget, but Prudential salaries, i.e. finance, being over. Fire department, as you heard, the lower overtime to cover injury and sick time has made them so far very favorable against budget. But as Rick pointed out, these are volatile areas. All our expenses are lower. Again, I think that might be, we could lay some of that at the door of COVID as well, as most of our expense levels are running below last year. The same goes true for the water department. They have lower overtime. Some of that may go away with the replacement of the assistant, which I did not bake into any of these figures nor in any of my extrapolations. Freedom Hall, we have not had any work done due to COVID, and therefore the expenses are substantially below what it was last year. Streetlights, basically tracking where they were last year, slightly under budget. Some of that will turn around as in the spring, but the maintenance has been much lower both this year and last year. In the debt area, these figures are raw. They are not adjusted for the refinancing authorizations. I simply use the actual expenditures for the bands against what was budgeted. Overall, on the refinancing, we received about $2.3 million and expended out somewhere around $2 million. So we're well ahead on a cash flow basis, but I'm still working and will work with the auditors on how we properly reflect the refinancing in the financial statements. So I would take that that variance in the debt service with a large portion of salt, as most of that will go away. On the benefits line, we're tracking above budget because of the one-time retirement payment. As we look at the insurance lines, we will be under budget, even though we're going to end up slightly above on the stipend option. That will be offset by the lower monthly insurance cost. And in transfers, they've all been done. Chris, you didn't see it on your statement that you saw, but I've made that adjustment and made that transfer before I published the treasurer's report. So those are all done and on budget. So overall, really only one area that I can foresee where we'll have a variance, and that is in the area of finance department salaries. I think it's understandable for the causes that created that variance. All other areas appear to be on budget. And with the refinancing, I think we will be generating some positive turnbacks to the budget that will help enhance next year's free cash. Any questions? I was kind of quick to go through that, so I apologize. Go up to the summary. I think you can see that it all comes together. We'll have a positive revenue variance, and it appears we'll have a small positive expense variance as well.
So I have a couple of questions. We had a $95,000 deposit from FEMA. Has that been?
No, it was not a deposit.
Oh.
It was that was our long-term debt payment to USDA.
Oh, okay, all right. So the COVID funds that we've gotten to date, those should cover the overtime for the treasurer's office, or most of it.
Yeah, but that's not really how the mechanics work. The expenditures stand alone. So we will have to cover that, since that one article will be over by 12, even though the grant money more than offset that, or will more than offset it. Unfortunately, in the wonderful world of municipal accounting, the right hand doesn't take into account what the left hand achieved. So the pain in the right hand has to be addressed, even though the left hand is surplus with funds.
Okay, thank you. And I also want to thank Lisa, who worked and brought our workers' compensation up to date, and also found one that was less costly to the district. Any other questions about the budget?
Not for me.
Okay.
No, very clear and comprehensive. Thank you.
All right. So the next thing is the Cotuit School Committee. I'm going to start with, I had a complaint from Mrs. Gardner that DJ McKinnon was on the committee, and he's not a resident of the village, a full-time resident of the village. And so I consulted with Mr. Boudreau, and I just want to, if you consult our bylaws, you'll see under the section that section 9 that deals with district members on the Prudential Advisory Committee and the Bylaw Committee, it says citizens, doesn't say resident. And if you also read section 11, which is regarding to forming subcommittees, also says citizens, not residents. The only place residents are noted is under the section about who can run for the elected positions in the district. So, and basically what Mr. Boudreau said was that, you know, he could serve on the committee because he is a citizen. And there's a difference between a resident and a citizen. So I have talked with DJ McKinnon, and he's going to continue on the committee as a non-voting consultant, which I'm hoping will make everyone happy. But he's extremely well-versed in all the ins and outs of large projects, building projects in the state of Massachusetts, and he knows the building code by heart practically, and he's a great asset to have on the committee. So I think it's important for him to stay on the committee. And I hope my committee members agree. The other other item is that during our the school committee's last meeting, we selected 3 members to discuss, you know, the protocol for, you know, Cotuit taking over the school if we want. And we need to vote those people to allow them to meet with the Mark Anthony. And they are Jackie Barton, Mark Lynch, and Jim Danhauser. And they will be meeting with Mark. As a note, the last asset management committee has decided that they are going to be working between now and their next meeting, which is March 24th, on a proposal for us to take over the school building. So, you know, that's so it's just would be too cumbersome for the entire school committee to meet with the representatives of the town. So this will be a more official way of doing it. They don't obviously have any power to make any commitments on behalf of the district, and neither does the school committee. The only commitments that can be made are made by the district meeting, which we'll be holding as usual in May. So could I have a motion to approve Jackie Barton, Mark Lynch, and
I have a
Jim
quick-
Danhauser to be our representatives to discuss with Mark Anthony of the town, the school.
Fran, sorry, could I just ask a question before we
Sure.
vote? I think I was at the last meeting for the school, and I remember that small 3-member team being put together. And that the idea would be to go to the town and meet with representatives of the town. How do they get guidance in terms of what they are authorized to say or ask, or how do they? Yeah,
And our last school committee meeting was an executive session,
Mhm.
and we discussed that during the executive session with them. So, you know, the town has certain things that they're looking for also. So this is just as I say, they're not making any commitments. But you know, there were concerns that we discussed in the meeting that they will be discussing with Mark Anthony and at the town.
So maybe
Now- Oh,
but
you first. Sorry.
just their scope, it sounds like it's pretty narrow in focus, or is it pretty broad in terms of what they're raising with the town?
This is really hard to talk about because it was discussed in executive session, but
Right.
it's, you know, so I would say it's going to be a general discussion with the town, you know, as opposed to just, you know, the discussions to date, which have taken place in the asset management meetings and the, you know, the villagers of Cotuit, and letters sent by the water department. And the committee had asked some questions of some legal questions that Mark Boudreau has also met with some people at the town, so to find the answers to those questions. So, but unfortunately, I'm not really at liberty to say much more because it was an executive session about negotiating for property.
Now, I have a question relative to executive session for a
Yeah.
subcommittee of this committee. Now, there have to be minutes maintained of an executive session, but they're
Yes.
private. Now, as a subcommittee of this committee, could we see the minutes of the executive session, meaning Paul and I, and well, you were there, but just, and without commentary or without any, would that, I'm not that I necessarily, I'm just curious, is that, I don't know how that works.
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I can find it, I can get that answer for you from the folks in Boston, but I don't know myself.
Yeah,
the
I'm
answer
just
to that question.
curious, because just, you know, it seems like if it's a subcommittee of this committee, that we could at least be aware of it as it pertains to what our, you know, our eventual involvement in what it's going to be
Right,
as an advisory committee. But that was my only question.
okay.
Well, I guess I had a second question though, that's slightly, so relative to the complaint you referenced or the question you referenced earlier, is it necessary for us to specifically by the bylaws appoint each individual by name in a meeting, in an open meeting like this, meeting for the whole school committee? Is that maybe Charlie, I don't know, or Ray or Fran, for the entirety of the committee to be on the record as having been appointed by us?
The general procedure when subcommittees are formed by elected officials, like say that the town council,
Right.
the president of the town council will, you know, select the people on the committee. on
Right,
the
so it's not
subcommittee.
something we all have, that has to be, I was just curious, relative to what you were talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
That was all I had.
Okay. So could I have an emotion to approve Jackie, Mark, and Jim to meet with the town?
So moved, I'll move that we accept them. Or
Is there a
appoint them.
second?
I'll second.
All those in favor, Seth,
Seth Burdick, aye.
Paul,
Paul Hanley, aye.
Fran Parks, aye. Okay, great. And the next item is the capital improvement proposal from the Policy Advisory Committee So do you have any thoughts on that, on the proposal? Gentlemen?
Well, I reviewed it and I think it's pretty comprehensive insofar as I mean, I don't have, insofar as I don't have any corrections or edits or addenda to it. I think that we were on I mean, the fire commissioners and the water commissioners were going to also review this document and come back with edits if they had them, right? And then we
Yes.
would bring it to the district to adopt as policy. That's the idea, right? I mean, I personally, I think it's pretty comprehensive. I think it spells it out fairly clearly what our objectives would be and how we would execute them. I don't know. What do you think, Fran or Paul?
I
Well-
reviewed it. I thought it was pretty clear. I just did have one question on when the joint session would take place. It says 2 months before the annual district meeting with the water commissioners, fire commissioners, and prudential commissioners.
Right.
Is that next month for us?
Well, it's not, it hasn't gone in front of the, I think what we need to do first is have a meeting with the fire commissioners and the water commissioners to look, to, as a group, review this policy and see how it affects the fire department and the water department. So I don't think in terms of this year's annual meeting warrant that it'll probably be on there. I think we need to meet with the other two committees to get their impression of it and see what they think. I have a concern about putting the, part of it is to have the district vote at the annual meeting to, on a 5-year plan, a very specific 5-year plan in terms of projects. And, I don't know if at the next annual meeting, if whatever the project was for year 1 doesn't get done, do you rescind it? At the next meeting, is this actually a vote to for all of these projects to occur? That would be my concern about this. I'm not 100% sure that the district needs to vote on it. Yes, Ray?
I think there's other things that I would like to comment on, but and that would be when we get together with the other committees. There's certain things that, as I read it, didn't really mesh with UMass accounting, if you will, and my understanding of what the legal appropriation process is. There's also some terminology differences that could be confusing to taxpayers. And what's the difference between a capital project and a capital asset? Do all capital projects equal capital assets? And you got the feeling that it did in this case, but that's not quite correct. So there's some cleanup in that regard that I make a suggestion and then allow the commissioners to evaluate that. But I think that's probably best done when we get together with those other committees so that everybody hears the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. Any other comments on that topic?
So we proposed to have a meeting specifically regarding this document that we would all be in attendance.
Yes, right.
Sometime in the next period of time,
Yes.
months, and then we'll work on it. Ray, would you want to take this document and edit it in your way so that we can have that for the way that you would like to see it, or what you think would be different, just for our own edification, for my own edification, if we're
We'll do that.
that would be
I'll do
helpful for me, because I'm not an expert in this particular topic, but I'd like to see how you would alter it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Great. So the next item is public comment. Is there any public comment?
Yes, Carol Zace, I do. Hi,
Go ahead.
everybody. First off, thank you for screen sharing the treasurer's report. That was really, really helpful when Mr. Perone was giving his report, as well as water and fire. And I think that's something new that's been, you just did, or maybe I missed a meeting, but just want to say thank you. That was just great. A follow-up to Seth's question. I don't know if Scott Horsley is still on, but do the private wells affect the groundwater levels and therefore our aquifer?
Yes.
Well, they do. So there is some problem with them. It's not just all great and wonderful, like Scott was saying.
No, I mean, we only have one aquifer, so, you know.
So private wells are pulling as well as the drinking water.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so if you're using a sprinkler system off the drinking water system or off your private well, it's all still coming from the groundwater.
Right.
Okay, I will ask that again at Water Commissioners meeting, just to clarify that. Thank you. And then is the extra funds, money that is being brought in by the water department going to be paying down our tax rates and or debts like it was presented to us when the water rates went up, that there would be a year where everything got caught up budget wise, but eventually we could see some of the excess going against reducing our taxes or long-term debt. So I was just wondering if that's still in the picture.
Ray?
Simply, it has and it will. It reduced your taxes this year and it will reduce your taxes next year.
Okay, so when you say it's going into free cash, that free cash then goes towards our reducing our taxes or long-term debt?
No, I actually project as part of the tax calculation. I offset what we need to appropriate by anticipated water revenue. And it was anticipated this year in your tax calculation at a much higher rate than it was in the prior year. Next year, it may not be at that same level, but there will be free cash, incremental free cash, which may also offset the tax rate.
Okay, great. That's very helpful. And I'm sure at the district meeting, you will also let people know that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yep. This is under the other matters, or are we still on the other?
Yeah, other matters, fine.
I have two contracts that I would like the commissioners approval to sign. It is in regard to our data processing and file secure storage. We were going to join the fire department in ShareFile, but that arrangement did not suit our needs. So we are establishing a relationship or reestablishing an independent relationship with Secure Networks. And we will convert our files to their cloud managed system. And that will cost us approximately $1,700 and 17 cents, excuse me. It'll be 1,700 plus the 275. I thought it was added, but I didn't do that. 1982 is the one-time cost, and then an ongoing cost monthly to manage that, as well as provide technical support for the assistant treasurer and myself. And that is at $314 per month. So those are two very necessary arrangements that we need to make. And I would like the commissioners' approval to sign those two contracts.
Any questions?
Well, we talked about this a little bit, Ray, when I saw you recently, and it's just impossible to carry on with the current system that we have, and for Lisa as well, you guys have had, it's just been impossible.
Yeah,
That was kind of a
it's,
question.
Lisa
Yeah.
has had better luck with than I, but, you know, the records are my responsibility, and I don't feel comfortable in the fire department's arrangement. It's great for them, as Paul can attest, but it just isn't working, particularly for me. And as the guy who's responsible, I need the proper facility.
I
And
just,
also, there's no technical help in that I
Right.
think is very important on an ongoing basis for us to have.
I just wanted to add that, you know, over the last, I don't know how many years, you know, but municipal accounting programs that municipalities have, you know, been at high risk for being taken over by, you know, hijackers. They've been hijacked. And so, you know, we really need a system where all of our data is in the cloud and is safe. And so that it's not interfered with by outside parties.
Right.
Anything,
Yeah,
Paul?
just to add, I mean, Lisa knows I've had some challenges getting in the system, and sounds like this will address that and fix some of the problems that others have had as well. So I support it.
Great. Okay. So can I have a motion to authorize the expenditure of $1,980 $1,980 to go into a contract with Secure Networks for records, treasury record storage and support for the system.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
All those in favor, sir? Seth?
Seth Burdick, aye.
Paul?
Paul Hanley, aye.
Fran Parks, aye. Okay, and the last bit of business is the minutes from the January 25th meeting. I've already corrected Paul's name that I spelt wrong, sorry.
You're not the first one, believe me.
And Charlie, I fixed your name, so it's, any questions or concerns about the minutes from
Nothing.
the last meeting?
Charlie spelled with a Y at the end, is that right?
I just gave him a C.
Is that right, Charlie? You got a Y at the end of yours? I'm trying to say something, but unmute.
Yeah.
Can't unmute. There he
So,
is.
No, I'm IE. EY is my granddaughter.
Oh,
okay.
that's your granddaughter, Charlie.
Yes,
Oh, my goodness. And she spells it with a Y.
yes.
Is her last name Willow?
Gustafson's her last name.
Oh.
Willow is her middle name.
Oh, okay. So apparently that's who you're imitating today, because that's what it
Right.
says on the screen.
She had coding first.
Oh, okay. So I'll accept a motion to accept the minutes of the January 25th meeting.
So moved.
There a second?
Second,
All those in favor, Paul?
Paul, aye.
Seth?
Seth, aye.
Fran Parks, aye. So that's, unless is there anything else? From anyone?
Not from,
So our next meeting will be March 15th.
sounds good.
Okay, so motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Second,
I second.
so moved. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you all
Have a good
soon.
evening.
Have a good night.
Everyone.